I'm curious why you became a staff support engineer, and I don't just mean in the sense of what qualifications do you think you have that made you get that role, but why did you decide to go for it? Why did you want it? Did you want it? Are there any interesting connections between these questions? That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, hi Manu. So I'm on record in the video that Cynthia recorded, saying that I didn't want to become a staff engineer. My imposter syndrome was comfortable being a peer of all the other engineers. More of the team is going to be familiar with the promotion process for senior, and perhaps a reasonable number of folks are familiar with the conversation about promotion being initiated by their manager. Ilya definitely raised staff with me more than once. I was comfortable that I was performing at senior, but when I looked at some of my peers, I couldn't really see why it should be me rather than anyone else. Case in point, Brie, Anton, and yourself got promoted in February 2024. A better question might have been, what reason would you give other engineers for pursuing a promotion to staff? So maybe we'll touch on that in some other questions.
Hi, Manu. I think that's a great question. Why did I decide to become a staff support engineer? And I think the answer is initially I didn't seek the role at all. Like Ben, I think imposter syndrome played a huge part in that, and it was definitely a hurdle for me. But what I did have at the time was a really supportive manager. So Jane, I like to call her the Almighty Jane. She was awesome. She provided significant support and helped me recognize that my work was already at staff level, even though I hadn't personally acknowledged it. I had also several peers that were asking if I was going for staff because that was the next round coming up. And even though I still wasn't interested, I had Jane also kind of nudging me every now and again, asking me about it. And it was only until I caught wind of other team members that were going for the staff role that I thought, let's throw my hat in the ring and let's see how it goes. But even then, I wasn't fully 100% sold on it. And, um, doing the promo doc, I could see the evidence in front of me and it was awesome stuff. But at the time, I just thought, no, this is not good enough. But I was pleasantly shocked when Sean and Jane came back to me and said, "You got the job." And I was like, it was that moment that I realized that, hey, I felt like I was ready to be a staff. So, yeah, looking back, I think it definitely was a natural fit. And, I'm just glad that things worked out that way.
It's fascinating for me to think about how to answer why did I want to become a staff support engineer. Um, in a way, it felt like an extremely natural step for me. I have found myself in a leadership position on every team I've worked on in every organization I've been in. So, in a way, it was like, well, why would the GitLab support team be any different and change that pattern for me? I can identify two very clear aha moments on my journey. The first one, when I was an intermediate, I worked with Will, who was a staff support engineer in my region at the time, to build the Giddily training module for the support team. And the aha moment was realizing that I could identify a problem that was impacting the team and collaborate with my peers to solve that problem. And that training module is really important for driving impact, like for our customers. It was helpful to the team, like in that moment, and for the years since then. And it was incredibly empowering to realize that I could solve problems at that scale. The other aha moment was just all of my participation in the Staff Engineers Path Book Club in calendar year 2023. from the active commitment that was signing up for that book club and saying out loud to myself, to my manager, to other participants in the book club, "Hi, my name is Brie Carranza, and yes, I'm a senior support engineer, but I'm absolutely thinking about staff level engineering and the extent to which that has something to do with me." From that active commitment all the way to thinking deeply about what was written in that book and how to apply it to support engineering helped me shift my thinking. There's this like expression about how you get the job by doing the job. I feel like I turned into a staff support engineer as I was reading that book and thinking about how to apply what was in that book to what I was doing. So for me, the path to staff support engineer is inextricably linked with the Staff Engineers Path book club. And that book club really, really worked for me because I am an academically inclined kind of person. And so for folks like me, I cannot recommend highly enough reading or skimming through the content of the Staff Engineers Path. It's incredible perspective. And even if you're not thinking about staff level engineering for yourself, it's still, I think, really interesting content to understand what staff level engineers are thinking about and the kinds of impact they try to have and the way they try to achieve that.
I'm gonna start out with the part, why did I want to become a staff support engineer? Because I think that naturally leads into the answer of why did I become a staff support engineer. So much like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, I didn't want it initially. Brie actually planted that seed very early on, and I think unknowingly. So in our weekly one-on-one meeting, shortly after I got promoted to senior, she was already promoted to senior at that time. And so very shortly after I got promoted, probably honestly the first meeting we had after my promotion was announced, she said, "Congrats, and now on to staff." And we didn't like go into any more detail. It was just a throwaway comment, but in my mind, I couldn't help but think, whoa, what? Slow down there. I'm just getting started feeling uncomfortable in the very fresh new senior role. Give me a bit of time here to adapt. And that's when I started thinking more about the staff role, though, because when I joined GitLab, I literally had never before heard of staff role. I worked at a German small business before and at university before in Germany. That's not contexts where many companies have adapted to that individual contributor track, and not having everyone after senior go to manager, which kind of is the default still here, I think. I wasn't even aware what that is, and I had a coffee chat very early on with Will, who was a staff support engineer at the time, and pretty much my first question was, "So what is a staff support engineer?" And similarly to how you probably will experience it if you ask anyone today, he kind of said, I don't really know, because nobody really knows. But yeah, the more far-reaching than senior, bigger picture, blah, 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 the usual stuff, but it didn't really answer it for me. So I still had to think like, okay, what would that actually mean after Brie planted that seed? And it's interesting because when we actually both started going for the promotion, we found out that she wasn't quite serious about it when she said that, and I hadn't really understood that part in our interactions yet, and so that's why I said unknowingly she planted that seed. And ironically, then when we started going for it, I became more of a driving force. And so now we're at the point of why did I then become a staff support engineer? I feel over time, it just started to feel right. So as I grew into the senior role,
and started looking, okay, what is the staff role? What are the expectations? What do we have written down in the various handbook pages about that? I started seeing more and more, well, I'm doing that. Isn't that kind of what I'm already doing? And so I did arrive at that stage where you feel like, I guess I should be promoted because I'm already kind of doing that. And so I brought it up with my manager and she said, yeah, I agree. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I should go for it. And yeah, that's why that happened.